All right, welcome back to a special edition of the show. Today we have a very, very special guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I am Sasha Emiri. I am a social media influencer and a commercial model, and I'm also a Twitch streamer.
Very cool. So, how are you today?
Oh my gosh, I'm doing good. How are you doing? My
Doing
birthday
good,
was
doing good.
yesterday, so I'm coming off of that birthday hype.
Well, happy belated birthday.
Thank you so much.
So, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into the social media craze.
Sure. It kind of came by surprise. It wasn't something that I expected to happen, but I actually had a really good friend back before influencers were a thing. He had around 20,000 followers on Instagram. And so whenever we hung out, we'd go to all these cool places, and he would be like, I need some content for my IG. Any chance you could take my picture? And so I became his stand in. Whenever he wanted a photo and he had the vision, I'd stand in there and he'd take the picture and he said, "Take this picture just like how I did you." So I did that. And then eventually he was like, "Why don't you post these pictures? They're clearly good enough for my account. You should post this on yours." And I thought to myself, I don't want people to think I'm conceited posting pictures of just myself. Like, that sounds crazy. Of course, nowadays, that's just what everybody does. But even just 4 years ago, it just felt weird. So he decided to start an account for me. And it was kind of like a little surprise. He was like, "Hey, I've posted a handful of photos and I feel like you'd like it. Like, here's the account. Why don't you just run with it? Like, no one even knows about it." And so it became like this little secret project that we just kept up with until it just kind of blew up and I started to gain a lot of traction. And then everybody, including my friends, family, everyone knew about my account. It wasn't really a secret anymore.
Yeah, a lot of people, think that being an influencer or doing YouTube videos or anything like that is just super easy and that you post one thing and all of a sudden you're famous.
Right, right. It definitely wasn't an overnight sensation by any means. I feel like I did gain some traction at a certain time, probably like the first to second years when I had like my biggest growth. But really, it was because I was posting constantly, and it was a grind really to get all the types of pictures out, and then also really figuring it out. Like I didn't know much about being an influencer or what people wanted out of me. So it was very much a learning process throughout it all.
Yeah, and I can understand that coming from the podcast side of things because it's one of those things where it's technology is just not something I'm good with. I work with cars, so that's kind of where I'm coming from. And so, I mean, it's one of those things where, I'm sure it's the same with what you started off with is it's a learning curve. You learn about the algorithms and how things work and that consistency is the biggest key to it all.
Definitely. Yeah, it can be hard to stay consistent too, a lot of us, it's not our full-time job. This is something that's truly a hobby of mine. And so it's just something where it's like, it's a pretty big hobby where it does bring income, but is it big enough for me to throw everything else out? So that's kind of the gamble that I've been dealing with right now, the balance.
Yeah, and you're right. It's kind of crazy because this, like for you, like the whole influencer thing is for you. This is a part time thing for me, but I feel like you're proof that if you put in the work, it'll all work out. It's just getting down to the grind and just keeping your nose to the ground and keep on going.
Right. And I think the hard part that people need to remember is that, like, the process isn't easy. It isn't just an uphill, like, oh, everything's just great progress. I'm gaining thousands of followers a day. Like, you lose followers too. And sometimes you don't know why it's not working out. I feel like I'm experiencing it all over again now that I'm starting on Twitch. So that's a new platform for me, but it's been interesting to figure out what is my niche, what am I going to post about, and so it's been interesting ever since I started that too, and that was a month and a half ago.
So, what do you think the hardest part about becoming an influencer and starting from scratch to where you are now to pretty much starting from scratch on another platform?
Right. I think the hardest part about switching into a different platform, at least, is that, you're working with a different audience. It's also, I don't understand the algorithm of Twitch. I don't think it necessarily has one, but it has its own way of gaining traction as well. So, there's all these little add-ins. Like anytime I get a follow, I can like add in a thing, or I have a little poll where people can vote on things. It's just kind of crazy how like everything is very instantaneous. With Instagram, you get to be a lot more calculated. You can think of your post for weeks in advance. You can make it look all perfected. And then you go onto Twitch where it has nothing to do with being perfect. It's very much about being as authentic as possible live, like immediately. So that's been really kind of a big switch for me because I'm used to just like, okay, I want to make sure that every angle looks great. And now here I am, like, trying to cook things and messing things up on the, as it goes. Yeah, but I would say it's really fun. The best switch about it has been that I get to see really like my loyal following and the people that have supported me for years from Instagram transfer over to Twitch, and now they get to know my personality. There's only so much you can give out in a caption on Instagram.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and Twitch, what Twitch is for you right now, TikTok is for me because it's one of those things where I don't really quite understand how it works. I just know that it does in certain ways.
Right, for sure. No, it's hard because you have to figure out like how the platform works and how you're able to grow on it. So, a lot of what I learned on Instagram years ago, even on just the same platform, it continuously changes every day. It used to just be, oh, make sure you use hashtags and your location. And now it's like, oh, make sure you post Instagram reels every single day and post 5 stories. Like, it's so crazy how that works. And so, yeah, TikTok is also a whole different battle too, and I know it changes its algorithm. So I wish you luck.
Yeah, I mean, I just enjoy the process of it all. And I'm sure, since you've been doing it so long, the process I would imagine it's a challenge, but I would imagine is the fun aspect of it too, of how can I turn this into something, much larger than what it is.
Sure. I think whenever you're starting something new, it's easy to stay a little bit more motivated because everything's fresh. You're like, oh wow, like this just happened and that just happened. I'm learning. It's great. If anything, the hardest part has been like more of that like maintenance, but also like keeping up to try to grow it. So with my Instagram, it's been on kind of a maintenance phase for a while where I'm like, okay, I'm trying to be a corporate baddie and I'm doing my real, 9 to 5 job. And then here's my Instagram, but I want to like do something more than just maintain it. And so really it's been a battle to try to grow that while also doing other things.
Yeah, and I can imagine that. I try to wrap my head around the influencer part of it just because coming from a totally different industry, it's kind of foreign to me in a way where you see these people that are making a living doing it, but you
Right.
only see their success after they've achieved it. You don't see the hard work that they put in.
Right, and it's interesting too. I feel like I've put myself in a little bubble here in St. Louis where I live, because a lot of the influencers you see are out in the coast areas. They're in San Francisco or they're in New York City. They're just, in those bigger cities where I feel like maybe there's more people to connect with. So I've tried to find ways to meet people here in St. Louis too, because I know they're out there. But yeah, sometimes I don't even consider myself an influencer, because I'm like, I don't know who I'm influencing. I feel like I'm doing this on my own in this little like online world. So
Right?
yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and I admire people like you that are able to do something month after month, year after year, and still have the passion for it, and still be able to want to grow your reach into different platforms. And what is it like for you to be an influencer, even though as of right now it may not be a full-time gig, so to speak, but I would imagine it you would want it to be at some point.
Sure. So for me, what it feels like to be an influencer is that I have a lot of online friends. Like, when I wake up in the morning, I feel like I have conversations that I like have put on pause because I got busy. I go back to like hang out with them, and it's so funny. I've told a lot of my followers like, please don't change your profile picture, because that is how I identify you. It's your username and your profile photo, because like I really do feel like I can connect in so many different ways. It's fun. I have a good sized following in the Bay Area in San Francisco, where I used to live years ago. And so it's like whenever they talk about things happening there, I'm like thinking back to my childhood when I used to roam about those areas too. And so it's like there's that part of me where I'm like wanting to genuinely connect with everybody, hang out as much as I can throughout the day. But then, of course, it's like I go to work. And then after my work, that's when I have to go make content. So then I'm out doing photo shoots with different photographers. Maybe I have to make it all on my own. And so it's always like my head is turning, trying to think of the content. And then after I make the content, then I'm consuming it. Then I'm scrolling through just like everybody else, trying to see what I should be doing next. And so, yeah, it kind of feels like, you never stop working, but at the same time, it's not work. So it's an interesting combination.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, you're doing something you really enjoy doing, and anytime you can do that, it's never work. It's always something that brings joy, and you just have a blast doing, and not everybody can say that.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like whenever I can like make an impact in other people's lives, that's when I'm like, wait, you know what? Like whenever I get like sick of social media or something, I think back to like, wait, remember how I made this post and someone told me they could relate and that it boosted their spirits and things like that. That's when I'm like, okay, snap out of it, Sasha. Remember like your reason for doing all these things and the reason why you enjoy it so much. So I have to remind myself, forget the numbers, forget the algorithm. That stuff's whatever. I stay for the people.
And see, that was one of the things that was hard for me to learn at first. Just doing the whole YouTube thing is it's not about growth. It's about the consistency, and it's about doing what your current followers, whether it be one or 500,000, what they enjoy consuming that you do.
Yeah, exactly. I 100% agree. And it's one of those things, you talk about how you do something because you're super passionate about it. I feel like something that I learned through being an influencer is that I'm actually very passionate about doing commercial work and doing like the modeling side of things. As someone who is 5'2.5", although I'll tell you on my portfolio that I'm 5'3", like I never thought that I could model in a million years. It's like, yeah, it's fun to get my picture taken, but to the extent where people would pay me and consider me to be on an ad, I just thought that was like way beyond me because I wasn't tall enough or I wasn't thin enough. Whatever the reason was, I didn't think it was attainable. But through just posting on my social media, these agencies reached out to me and I was like, wow, like maybe there is a chance. And so now that's also something I do on the side where I just get reached out for different auditions. I audition for them, and so I'll take off work to go do those different gigs. And it makes me feel alive. It's fun because every single one of these is you get to act like a whole different character, and so it just like takes me out of my world. And so that's why I'm like, you know what, I like how social media, you can make it whatever you want it to be. If you want to be a model, then post about modeling and doing photo shoots, and then people will be convinced you're a model to where agencies will find you. That's like the best part about it. It's your portfolio for whatever you want to be.
I think it's, to your point, I think it's really cool that when you're able to make content, you're able to not so much, well, even though it's stepping out of your comfort zone, you're also learning a new skill or skills that you wouldn't have learned otherwise.
Definitely. One of the things I always thought, like when I was first getting into it, was like, oh, what's my niche? What's my thing? There's so many people out there where, for example, people who work on cars, like that's their thing. That's what they're really good at, or they're artists. And I, for years, thought about like, I don't know if I'm like an expert at anything. Like, yes, I did gymnastics for 13 years, but like, I'm retired. I can't show you how to do backflips all the time. And what I came to realize is that you don't need to find a niche. The niche will find you, because you just have to be yourself. The more you're yourself, the more you'll come to realize what naturally is what you are.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And it's, I think that's across the board, whether you're in, what you do, or, doing the YouTube thing, or being a part of the corporate world. It's one of those things where if you are true to yourself and being who you are, you're going to have people that like you. I mean, naturally, in the day and age we live in, you're going to have people that don't, but that's going to find you no matter where you are.
Yeah, that's a hard one to kind of wrap your head around too. I know that when I started TikTok, I did it for a little bit and I really liked it. And then I had a video go viral for like the wrong reason entirely. It was like something about like Japanese kanji. I figured out that there's one symbol that means woman, but if you put three of those symbols together, it means noisy. And I was like, what the heck? Did you know that that's what it is? Like, the whole language is calling women noisy. And like, I just kind of put it out there as more of a lighthearted, like, oh, that's kind of silly that they did that. And the whole world was like, you're a noisy woman. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like all these people that I don't know just like being annoying. Like, it's just interesting how like you have to keep those like haters out, or they're not even haters, they're just trolling. But you just have to have like thick skin, just don't even think about it, and just like keep doing you. Because you're right, like the people that are gonna hate, well, they'll do that no matter what. But the best part of the algorithm is the fact that it will help you find people that can relate and that are just like you.
Exactly. So, in the aspect of social media, how does it work, as far as, I mean, I get the whole, you got to post to get things out, but as far as, the comments and, the outreach that you get, what is that like for you? I mean, just, you know, with the following that you have, I would imagine that it can be overwhelming to a degree.
Yeah, definitely. It can be overwhelming for sure. I tell myself that whenever I do make a post, that it's at a time where I'm mentally feeling capable to respond to messages and comments. Because I'll have some days where I just feel overwhelmed. There's too much on my plate, and for me, if I'm going to make a post, I want to interact. That's the reason why I'm there. And so sometimes I think my followers have noticed I'll just go on these random sprees where I'm gone for like a week and a half. And people are like, I miss you. Are you okay? And I'm like, I'm okay. I just needed a break because my brain was going to explode. And so I just go through these little ebbs and flows. It's like a little roller coaster. So, it's not necessarily that my mental health is bad or good. It's more just like I needed to take a break to be a little more present. And so, yeah, like people can directly see, like, what is Sasha up to? Oh, she needed a break, or she's on vacation. She's chilling out for a second. So when I do decide, okay, I'm making a post today, am I in a good mood? Am I ready to, see what people are going to say or react? Because when I am in more of a unhappy mood, or who knows why I woke up in an absolutely terrible mood, I'm not going to post that day, because no matter what the outcome is of the post, for some reason I'll think negatively, or maybe I'm just not ready to be answering people. Because for me, a lot of why I do what I do is the interaction. And so I'm one of those people that does like to comment and respond back to people and check my messages. So yeah, like these things have to match, or else it's not even worth posting.
Right. And I can understand that. It's like working a full time job. You got to take vacations and breaks every so often and, kind of mentally get to the point where not even like you said, where your mental state's not bad, but you just got to clear your head, so to speak.
Right, exactly. And I just, it's hard to make good quality content too. So why would I post it when I'm half-assing, the whole thing? That doesn't make sense. I want to make sure that I'm like fully committed whenever I do make a post, to make sure the interactions are there, to make sure everybody's excited and we're making fun conversation. And then, for the algorithm to favor it as well.
So what goes into creating posts and creating content on the different platforms that you're on?
Sure. So, really, I think it comes down to inspiration. I look through Pinterest a lot. That's one of those things. I have mood boards with the different photographers that I work with. And we think about, okay, what are some of the vibes that we're looking for? Is it on trend, or is it more something that we feel artistically inclined to create? What's the reason behind it? Sometimes my friends and I, we do photo shoots for the sake of, hey, we want to be published in a magazine. How can we be a little bit artsy and a little different and really get the shot that we need? Or maybe it's more like, I'm just needing some like content for my regular everyday posting, so something that's a little cute. Maybe I saw a celebrity do it. So I take all that in, and then I go do the photo shoot. And trust me, sometimes it's just like my mom or someone else taking my picture. Like people think that I'm like with a professional photographer all the time. That is not the case. I'm just super picky about which photos end up going on my page. Like, there's definitely tons of bad photos that just don't make it onto the account. And that's by design. I'm trying to get the best things out there. So yeah, it's a whole process. Thinking of it, creating it, waiting for the photographer to, do their edits for the lighting, whatever it is, and then deciding when it goes out.
So what platform do you find is the most challenging but also the most rewarding?
Ooh, well, so I wouldn't consider myself to be on like a ton of different platforms. Like YouTube is something I haven't tested out yet. I feel like that's a big beast to take on. So really, I applaud you for it. So Instagram's the one that I've put a heavy focus on for many years. And so that one's the one that's the most rewarding, but also the least rewarding at the same time. I think in general, just the platform becoming less of a photo sharing app, and it having an algorithm focused on making more profits for whatever their design is, it makes it harder for the creator to want to keep going, because we're not getting that stimuli of, oh, it's reaching my following. Sometimes like I have nearly 100,000 followers and only 10,000 people saw it. Like that's mind boggling. What's the point of all those followers following you if they don't even get to see what you're doing? And so those types of things like drive me crazy. But then it comes down to, the people that do check in and we're, talking, we get to hang out, and then they transfer over to Twitch and we get to just live chat.
And see, Twitch is kind of an interesting thing. I tried that probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I couldn't figure it out. It was one of those things where, I kind of get what you do, but it's also you see all these creators, and I think Twitch didn't that start as like a video game type streaming service?
Yes, definitely. It still is a majority of people on there. They're gamers. People love to watch other people play video games and figure out how they go through some of those difficult levels. For me, I'm there just to chat. It's interesting. So I had a big fear of trying it. It was something my brother thought of. He was like, Sasha, you got to get on Twitch. Like, it's kind of an untapped platform. Like, it'll be a great way for you to interact. And I was like, you know what? Okay, I'll do it. So, about probably 8 months ago, I told my following, I'm going to do Twitch. And then I chickened out completely. And I was like, I don't know if I could do this. Never mind. Trying new things is maybe not for me. But I had a very interesting situation happen. I got reached out by a director in LA, talking about me hosting a TV show. There was like all these great things happening to where basically the situation, it fell through. But what I gained through it was the confidence to realize, wait, maybe I'm not giving myself enough credit. Maybe I can do these things that I'm scared to do. And so it allowed me to revisit Twitch and finally get on there. And yes, I think it's a confusing platform when you first get on. You see a whole mix of different things. There's video gamers, there's these people rubbing like oil all over themselves, there's like this ASMR. Like, you don't know what's quite happening, but you start to find the people that like you're similar with or you can relate to, and you're like, okay, I get it. It's more of a community building platform if you ask me. It's a great way for your following to interact with each other, and then they become friends too. And I think that's what's so beautiful about it.
And that's what I was going to say too. Is that you can not only interact with your followers, but like to your point, they can interact with each other, and then you can also bring people over to your other platforms as well.
Exactly. Yeah, I saw in the chat just the other day, someone was talking about how they were half Japanese, and that's my ethnicity. I'm half Japanese, half German. But then suddenly there was a conversation about like, "Oh wait, so am I." Wait a second, like, you're just like me. And so it was like they were kind of relating on their own, how they grew up, things like that. And so, yeah, it's just like funny the things that'll kind of like catch on and people get to have fun together. Yeah, I love that.
And see, I like the whole aspect of the social media interactions in general, because you don't realize that the other person on the other side of the screen may have the same interest or some of the same interests that you do, or you may be doing certain things that may inspire someone, regardless, of whether it be a bad or good situation. And I think that for a lot of people, seeing influencers and, people on social media and, YouTube, podcasts, things like that, you can relate to certain people.
Definitely. Yeah. When I was younger, I used to be one of those kids that didn't want to stand out. I wanted to be as, boring or normal as possible, so that way I can just like fit in with everybody else. My mom one time, she packed me sushi for lunch. It wasn't really sushi, it was just like the seaweed wrapper with rice, but I had it in my lunchbox, and all the kids around me were like, "Oh, Sasha has sushi," and it like scarred me for years. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so different. Like, never pack me that again, Mom. Only fruit roll-ups and sandwiches." But ever since those years, I slowly started to come out of my shell, and then realizing, hey, it's okay to be a little different, and there will be people that find you and accept you for those differences. Gosh, that took me years. It took me decades to realize, but now I'm so grateful for it, because now I can share that on my platform, and then maybe people that are just like me or used to be the way I was, they get to finally come out of their shell a little bit and be like, no, this is cool. Like, I'm okay with eating this thing, even though this person thinks it's weird.
Yeah, and being different is in my eyes, it's always a good thing, because you take two people that are polar opposites, and one person can learn something from the other. And, I think that's what makes society great is we're not all the same, and we don't all have the same interests or do things the same way, and we don't see things the exact same way, but that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. If there's anything to agree or disagree on, it should be something just more fun and light. And so I like how we can connect over just like those smaller things in life. Get us grounded
Ex-
again.
exactly. And I think that's what being for me the definition of being an influencer is being able to impact just one person, if it at all, and change somebody's either mindset or make somebody's day turn around, if they're having a bad day, or and just having that interaction, because on most social media platforms you don't find people like yourself that like to interact with their followers.
Right, and I've always wondered about that too, like what's the reason why they don't interact? There's been times where I've reached out to influencers, people that I've followed for years, and I'll like comment or say something, and then when I don't hear back, it's kind of like, oh, I guess they weren't, maybe they don't want to hang out. Maybe they don't want to, like talk after all. And, to me, it's more of like a missed opportunity potentially for them. But that's why I think it's so cool to always just be open. You never know what the world is going to bring to your table, but also like put yourself out there. You have to create your own luck. So many people, have talked to me and said, "Oh, you're so lucky." And I'm like, "Lucky? I made this happen." It's like I made the opportunities, present itself. You have to keep pushing and putting yourself out there, or else, things don't just happen, not most of the time.
And you're right. It's opportunity is not gonna present itself. It's not gonna just fall in your lap, and then all of a sudden, you're a famous, person, or you're the president of a company. It's just not going to happen. It's the hard work that you put in, and I'm a firm believer that if you put in the hard work, don't listen to the naysayers, and just keep your head down and do you. Eventually, good things are going to happen.
Right, exactly. And I think the key too is I always tell people you just got to be a little bit of crazy along with being like just motivated and being that believer, because and I say this in a good way. I want it to be a good type of crazy. Like for the most part, I'm a very realistic person, and I think that comes to a detriment because I humble myself way too quickly and I don't give myself that credit, and then I don't end up trying anything. I think it's called something like the spotlight effect or something in those terms. But you gotta just put yourself out there, be a little bit crazy, and be like, no, I'm just gonna do it to do it. Who cares? Even if you do care, pretend you don't and just do it.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, with anything having to do with online, whether it be social media influencers, you kind of do have to walk that fine line of sanity and insanity, because it's not something that everyone can do. And for some people who aren't strong, and not so much strong enough, but mentally strong enough, or like you touched on earlier, have really thick skin, all it would take is that one or two comments to just totally break you down. And it's going to happen. I mean, I'm sure you've had your fair share.
Sure. I mean, when it comes to comments, it's so interesting the ones that will actually hit you hard versus the ones that don't. Like the ones where they're like extra mean and just trying to say the meanest things possible. Those just come out to me kind of laughable because I'm like, man, you really care about trying to beat me up here. But it's just like one of those. I can't even think of one off the top of my head, but it's just one of those like random ones where like it's more of a slide on your moral character or something, where you're just like, hold on, like it's one thing if you make fun of my hair or this and that, but you make fun of me as a person, Now I got a problem.
Right.
Yeah, cause it's like out of all the things that people can say bad things about, the one thing that I like really try to stay true to is like who I am and what I represent. And so, of course, like even those people are gonna come at you and try to say mean things, and you're not gonna be, everybody's cup of tea. But yeah, sometimes it'll get to you, and when that happens, like one, don't respond. Two, don't think about responding. You just put it down. You could delete it so you don't have to see it, just so it doesn't exist in your mind or physically there. But that's just like a really big thing that I have, and I tell anybody, even my other friends, hey, I got this mean comment. What should I say? And I'm like, nothing. The answer is nothing, because they're either trying to get a reaction out of you, or there's someone that's hurting that they don't mean to be hurting you that way, but they're just going through their own thing. So it's not beneficial to say anything.
And you're right. Yeah, the worst thing you could do is just say anything, whether it be good or bad. The most hurtful thing to somebody that is trying to be hateful towards you in any way is just to totally ignore them, because then you're not bothered by it. They know they're not getting underneath your skin. Plus, to your point, you never know what somebody's going through. They may be having a bad day.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's something that like I definitely had to grow into that mindset, because when I was younger, I was kind of like, "Hey, if you have a problem, like let them know. It's better to be straightforward and communicate." But, that's not something that you can do on a regular basis, especially with people you have no idea what kind of personality they have, how they grew up. You're just going in there blind. Like, there's no reason to walk into a tiger's den if you can avoid it.
Right. So, we touched on some of your social media platforms, but as far as doing the influencer thing, and yeah, I know that some people use influencers to be promotional advertisers for companies. Do you have that kind of thing going on, and how does that kind of thing work in the social media aspect of things?
Sure. So I have an agency that I go through. So similar to the agency for modeling, I have an agency for any influencer brand partnerships. And so sometimes, I'll get things in my DMs where it's just, hey, Sasha, can you help us build some UGC? So really just me making content that they will post on their social media platforms, and that is it. They just want to use me for my face and name, and that is all. Or sometimes, they'll reach out and they say, "Hey, can you make some posts for us?" And so, a lot of the times, my favorite brand partnerships that I've ever done, I've been the one to reach out to them. So one of the ones that I did, I guess earlier this year, is I got LASIK eye surgery. I really felt like I needed to get my eyes fixed. I was sick of wearing my glasses, and so I reached out to LASIK Plus, and they were like, "Yeah, absolutely. Let's be, you could be our brand partner." And so, got my surgery. I was able to talk about something that A, I wanted, B, was super great for me. And so, why not? I've especially learned after doing many other partnerships in the past is that I want to make sure that whatever I promote, I truly believe in. If you do too many just for the money, then suddenly people don't believe you. You lose their trust. And then on top of it, you're stuck with all this product that you're not going to use. And so I try to be really picky about what I choose these days. So I would say that I don't post as many or as often, and especially in a very saturated influencer market now. I think since the pandemic, influencers really blew up. There are so many more influencers in this world, which I love, because people finally understand what I do on the side. But at the same time, it gets a lot more competitive to get to work with the brands that you want to. So I would say, one, if you are an upcoming influencer that wants to work with a brand, look through the brand's profile, see how they post their pictures, what type of content is out there, and then you start making content just like their page. That way, you can tag them in your posts, you can message them and DM them, email them, That way, they finally see your face, your name, and if they like your content, maybe they'll start posting on their page. Hey, can we get permission to post, the content that you made? And that's a good way to kind of start building that relationship, reach out to see if maybe they're open to a partnership, promotion, maybe start putting in some dollars behind it. That's the key to it all. For example, Steve Madden is a great brand. I love their shoes. And so recently I posted a picture and randomly tagged them, and they messaged me and they said, Sasha, can we put this up? Like, we really like your content. And so boom, establishing that relationship and seeing where it takes me.
And see, I like that where you're taking a cue from a good company that is successful on social media and using that to your advantage without exactly copying them, but using the same format, so to speak.
Right, exactly. And really, I mean, brands love that because it's an opportunity to be like, wait, we don't need to have a whole, setup and making more content for this. We got people right here who are doing it for free. All they want is a little bit of maybe a post or a tag, and then later on, if they're like, okay, Sasha, you have posted some really great content, probably 5 to 10 of, some of the best work we've had in a while from an influencer. Please, let's work together, and here's $5,000 or whatever it may be.
And see, that is, for me, is the really cool thing is you get to do what you love to do with making the content, but at the same time, over a period of time of being consistent and following through on everything and being calculating in everything that you do, it pays off. Sometimes that's a year, sometimes that's 5 years, but eventually it will pay off.
Exactly. And there's also websites out there, they're third-party platforms where you can sign up, you can put in your Instagram handle or whatever platform it is, and they'll say, okay, awesome. Whenever we see something that fits within, your following and a brand's interested, maybe we'll send you an email so you can apply and see if they'd take you on, or maybe they'll be reaching out to you through the platform whenever they see your profile.
Exactly. And that's one
Yeah.
of the things I love about, especially, the side of things of what you do is that it's authentic. It's you, and it's one of those things that you can tell by looking at your content that you love what you do.
Thank you. Yeah, it keeps me happy, that's for sure. I mean, there's definitely times where I feel gotten stressed out because of my platforms, but it has nothing to do with the audience. The audience has always kept me happy. And so, yeah, in terms of that, it's kind of fun. I've realized I have more fun when I put content out there that's directly speaking to my audience. And it could be something like an inside joke from something from my stream. Maybe it's like a random pickup line and seeing how people play off of that in the comments. So the more I kind of mess with them that way, the more fun it is.
And that's what it's about is having fun, interacting with people in a positive light. And that's what I love about what you do. I mean, it's truly one of those things that it just makes you go, well, I can try that. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but you're living proof that you stepped outside your comfort zone. You did things that you weren't necessarily comfortable doing, and now look at you. Look where you are now.
Yeah, I will say for anybody that's scared to try or do something, when you feel like you're about to throw up and you're like, oh my God, like I never want to do this, that's when you have to do it. It always seems to work out that way. My most stressful things have turned out to become like the best things for me. And I think I love the show Shark Tank. And one of the
Hmm.
things they always tell people is like, when it's time to sink or swim, that's the spot you want to be in because that's when you get the best progress. So sometimes, like when you're in a rock and a hard place, it's the perfect reason to go for it.
Exactly, and I couldn't agree more. I like to tell people that when you lose the nervousness and the butterfly feeling of how is this going to go? And oh gosh, I'm nervous, kind of like going on a job interview. Once you lose that, it's time to stop because every time I go to do something, if I'm nervous about it, for me, that's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. The less comfortable you are, the better it is because you're constantly learning from it, you're growing from it. Yeah, I've even heard that your life expectancy grows whenever you continuously get those nervous feels because you're constantly growing, your mind is stimulated. If you're doing the same thing every day and you're just comfortable always, like things start to get stale.
Yeah, and there's no fun in that.
Right, exactly. Nothing's fun unless you get a little nerves and, what is it called? It's like you need the yin and yang.
Exactly. And, it's also one of those things where if it were easy, everybody would do it. But that's the fun of it is nothing about social media is easy. I mean, anybody can post something, but to get that traction and to have the followers that you've gained is next level because it's one of those things where you had to start somewhere and you learned and progressed every single time you posted something.
Exactly. We all started at zero, and then you just have to figure out a way to try to climb it. Yeah, social media in my eyes is one of the hardest jobs, at least mentally. I know there's a lot of hard jobs out there, but for your mental capacity, I think it's hard to do for longer than just a couple of years. It's so easy to burn out. And so I've always wondered, like, what's going to be the future of influencers? Are we going to see just like a ton of people quit over the years and retire early, like within the next 5, 10? Or are we going to see like grandmas and grandpas as influencers? It's like, what is that timestamp of when it goes away? Because I could tell you it doesn't feel like something that you can do for just like 30 years, typing away.
Right, yeah. And I couldn't agree more. It's not sustainable in the way things are laid out currently.
Yeah, exactly. And also the issue too is a lot of us influencers, if our brand is, maybe it's photo shoots or modeling, so that's kind of how my account started to grow steam. I thought about how, well, what happens when I get old? No one's gonna want to see my photo shoots anymore. What's this, how can I sustain that? And so it's a constant rebrand of your page too, and that could be really hard. Like, will your following still stick around for the rebrand? Are they okay with who you're becoming, or does it not really match up with them anymore?
And that is a very, very challenging point is when you consistently evolve throughout the tenure from where you started to where you are to where you want to be. I think that's the nature of social media as a whole. And you touched on it earlier where you're going to change a little bit here and there and progress. And as you progress, you will lose followers, but it's like, what would we do without social media? I mean, if we had a group of friends as we got older, that group of friends is going to dwindle.
Yeah, exactly. Social media is kind of like that thing. You can't live with it, you can't live without it. Just how people describe their wives or whatever that saying is.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, as far as the platforms that you're on, I know you're on Instagram and Twitch. What other platforms are you on?
I'm also on TikTok as well, so those are my main three. I mean, you could friend me on Facebook, I'm there too, but you're gonna see a lot of just like content of just me and my friends and the photos maybe that I don't post on Instagram. So I would say those are my top three. It's like I'd love to expand, but I'm trying to just like make sure that I keep my harmony within me, so I can't do it all, at least while I keep my job.
Right. And as far as your social media handles, what are they for those three?
Sure. It's Sasha_Emiri. It's basically the same for all three, except for Twitch, there's no underscore, so it's just Sasha Emiri.
Very cool. Well, listen, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with me. I know you're a very, very busy person, and I've really enjoyed this conversation. It took us a while to get together, but I've
I
enjoyed
know.
it.
Awesome. I've enjoyed it too. Don't be a stranger. Feel free to reach out whenever. Thank you so much for this.
Absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate it, and I hope you have a good rest of the afternoon. What's left of it.
Thank you. Yeah, we still got a little bit of sunshine. You as well.